officially the end of 2025, and because of that, it is time to do 25 for 2025. Number 25 is The Mastermind. The Mastermind is exactly the kind of film that I want from Kelly Reichardt. She takes a heist setup and stretches it into slow cinema, where the job, being a thief, is basically just a pretext for character. This is not a heist film to go into expecting pyrotechnics. There are slight traces of gunfights and car chases, but if you're looking for Michael Mann, you're in the wrong movie. Reichardt builds the first half around very small, almost casual choices, leading us to a plan to steal Arthur Dove paintings, while James, our protagonist played by Josh O'Connor, keeps himself safely outside in the car. And then afterward, Reichardt just lets the whole thing collapse, the way these schemes always do. James has no real pivot, no real afterthought, and no instinct for consequences. Again, this is not your traditional heist film. It is very much a slow cinema character project, but if you can handle the pacing, it does get both funnier and sadder as it goes along. Number 24 is Bunny. Bunny is a festival film in all of the best ways. It's scrappy and chaotic and completely magnetic. It drops you into this East Village tenement building and just holds on tight. We follow Bunny, a beloved hustler, having a really bad day. We stay with him and his crew as they're hiding dead bodies and dodging cops and somehow, against all odds, trying to keep this fragile ecosystem of their housing complex running like nothing's wrong. What makes it work are the characters. We have a bevy of individuals crashing into each other in real time. We have Airbnb guests, estranged family members, and even a rabbi. The movie keeps finding new ways to complicate the situation without ever feeling like it's straining for plot. This is Ben Jacobson's directorial debut, and I respect how little pretension he brings to the project. He doesn't try to sand it down into an overly polished indie drama. Instead, he leans into the mess. He leans into the unpredictability, the lived-in chaos, and as a result, he pulls you in deeper with every moment. Number 23 is Hallow Road. Hallow Road is directed by British-Iranian filmmaker Babak Anvari, and it's a pretty trim, real-time thriller that never takes its foot off the figurative gas. The camera stays almost entirely inside a car with Frank, a stressed corporate fixer played by Matthew Rhys, and his wife Maddie, a paramedic played by Rosamund Pike. They race toward this forest road that gives the film their name because their daughter Alice is stormed off after a big fight, and we hear her terrified voice crackle through the speakerphone. She's pleading for help from a very remote stretch of woodland. As the drive goes on, the film forces these parents to start to face darker parts of themselves. Anvari also makes a very effective formal choice from a visual perspective. He uses 16mm film for the outside world while using razor-sharp digital inside the car. He effectively turns the vehicle into a psychological prison for the parents and for us. I won't spoil anything if you haven't seen this one, but I'd stick around for the closing credits. Number 22 is Bring Her Back. Bring Her Back is the Philippou brothers' second film, and it's pretty strong proof that they might be mainstays in modern horror. It drops two step-siblings, Andy and Piper, into a foster situation after a family death, and then slowly tightens the screws once Laura, played by the wonderful and brilliant Sally Hawkins, enters the picture. Hawkins really does give the performance of the film here. She provides such a layered antagonist that every moment she's on screen keeps us on edge. The other thing that really stands out with Bring Her Back is how nasty and layered the sound design is. It's not just a bunch of loud scare chords, but there's very specific, almost physical texture that gets under your skin, including a very awful sequence involving a knife and some teeth. Underneath it all, though, it is grief horror. It's really about what people will do to avoid sitting with loss. Number 21 is Friendship. Friendship is directed by Andrew DeYoung in his feature debut, and it honestly had me laughing out loud in the theater more than I have in years. DeYoung comes from TV and short-form comedy, but he manages to stretch that sensibility into something that feels a lot bigger than just a feature-length sketch. And being able to get Tim Robinson on board, his close personal friend, really brings everything together. If you know I Think You Should Leave, Tim Robinson's sketch show, the humor is in that lane. It's absurd, we have constantly painful secondhand embarrassment, and a central character that makes everything worse by trying too hard. The key difference here, though, is that it's not just bits. You're locked into one character for the whole runtime, so this sort of desperation starts to feel weirdly intimate. DeYoung and DP Andy Rajewski shoot it more like a drama than a comedy, which gives us another layer and an interesting lens through which we are able to see the absurd. And on top of that, in the very sparse moments where we aren't laughing, we're given some time to think about things like male loneliness and emotional repression. Number 20 is Predators. Predators is understandably controversial. It's sort of a film about To Catch a Predator, but it refuses the easy distance that made that series feel safe to consume. While the TV series was appealing to a simple yet false moral dichotomy of good guys and bad guys, where we, by sitting at home, get to be a good guy and the audience is never implicated, the film here, Predators, makes that sort of posture impossible. Ossett found a massive cache of unaired material, including post-Sting footage, full chat logs, and phone calls, and the result is a sort of emotional ping pong. One moment you feel deep disgust, and the next you catch yourself feeling something like sympathy, but then you recoil slightly at your own reaction. This isn't primarily a film about criminal acts, it's about storytelling, about who shapes the narrative, who benefits from it, and who pays. And it's also about complicity, the complicity of institutions, of creators, and us as the audience. Number 19 is Black Bag. Black Bag is the kind of taut spy thriller that I'm not always first in line for, but here Soderbergh has complete control. The premise is ruthlessly simple. George, played by Michael Fassbender, has 1 week to find a leak inside his intelligence organization, or tens of thousands of people die. The suspect list is essentially his social circle, including his wife Catherine, played by Cate Blanchett, and so he does what we might expect. He pulls everyone into a dinner party truth exercise that quickly becomes a sort of chess match. The vibe is old school espionage, but set in a more modern context with drone strikes and satellite surveillance and AI-powered eavesdropping. Fassbender and Blanchett, under Soderbergh's direction, take what could be a somewhat cliched, run-of-the-mill thriller and elevate it to something more. It really is a movie that, even if you might not fall completely in love, it's difficult to hate. Number 18 is The Secret Agent. The Secret Agent from Kleber Mendonça Filho is one of those films where you can kind of feel the director's hand in everything. Not necessarily in a super showy way, but in the sense that the movie has its own internal logic and refuses to translate itself for you. It's set in 1977 Brazil under the dictatorship, and it plays like a character study disguised as an espionage film. It has this constant tension hidden underneath the surface, and it's brought forward through Wagner Moura's tremendous performance. What really got me, though, is how the film manages to normalize horror and tragedy without ever truly flattening it. Bodies appear and people step around them, killers do their job and then go eat dinner. Cops use carnival chaos as cover. It's almost like a novel in its form and structure. It's a bit weird, but it's also oddly precise. It really is this kind of web of contradictions. But if you let it pull you into its wavelength, it is really a fascinating film. Number 17 is Barratt. Barratt, directed by Oliver Lachey, is one of the most, I would say, visceral films of the year. It's a movie that starts as a desert rave and slowly reveals itself as a story of grief, set against the feeling that the world is already ended. Our protagonist is on the search for his missing daughter with his son in tow, and the film uses that desperation as the entry point into this roaming community of ravers who are crossing the Sahara towards one last party. From a visual perspective, it is gorgeous. We have these very painterly wides shot on 16mm film, paired with a soundscape that makes the bass from this EDM music almost intertwine with nature, with the wind, and feel like the same force. At times, Lachey leans a bit into spectacle and the metaphors get a bit literal, but even with that, it really is a singular experience. It's such an interesting film, taking topics that we've seen before, topics like loss and community, but bringing us something new and showing us what keeps people moving when the future feels like it's already gone. Number 16 is Together. Together exceeded almost all of my expectations and ended up being one of my favorite films at South by Southwest this year. It's a debut feature film from Michael Shanks and stars the real-life couple Dave Franco and Alison Brie. It follows them as they relocate to the countryside and their relationship starts to unravel. From there, it takes this the fear of losing your identity within a relationship, and it gives it a physical shape through body horror. What I liked most is how Shanks is able to weave tone together. It can be genuinely unsettling, but then it'll turn around and land something awkward and funny without taking you out of the moment. The cinematography plays this same game. We have tight, shadowy indoor scenes that intentionally feel quite suffocating, but then we have this juxtaposition with bright outdoor stretches that almost mock the idea of space and freedom. It's scary at moments, but it also understands the beauty in committed love, even when we admit how terrifying that commitment can feel. Number 15 is Blue Moon. Blue Moon is Richard Linklater doing what he does best. He takes a simple setup and lets it turn into something painfully honest. We follow Loren's Hart, played by Ethan Hawke, after he ducks out of Oklahoma's opening night and parks himself at his local bar. The whole film from that point onward basically unfolds in conversation, classic Linklater. While Hawke is not necessarily the world's greatest character actor, he is truly one of the best at bringing out the humanity in whoever he plays, and he certainly does that here. The forced perspective to sell Hart's small stature can be a bit distracting at times, but it does also effectively feed the insecurity that's driving him. We see Hawke unravel more and more as the film progresses, and when Andrew Scott arrives as Richard Rogers, the film adds additional layers about partnership and abandonment and that overlap between professional failure and personal longing. Number 14 is Die, My Love. Die, My Love is a classic, this won't be for everyone Lynn Ramsey film, and I mean that as a compliment. Jennifer Lawrence and Robert Pattinson moved to the countryside with that romantic notion of we'll make art and we'll be free. But as we move through the story, Ramsey frames the whole thing through confinement. Jennifer Lawrence is dealing with new motherhood. The characters are dealing with creative paralysis. We see intrusive thoughts come in. We see hope, the collapse of hope, and the repetition of this cycle. The visuals definitely do a lot of the heavy lifting. The 1:3:3 aspect ratio reinforces this confinement, and shots on 35mm Ektachrome blurs the line between the real and the surreal, and then this is pushed completely into a dreamscape through the use of Petzval lenses. Throughout, we have very harsh highlights with windows blown out and reality kind of thinning at the edges. Ramsey also toggles between very anxious handheld movement and quiet, locked-off frames that let you sit in the silence. Add in the weaponizing sound design of absolute rage and then complete stillness, and it becomes a film that essentially plays like intrusive thoughts. Number 13 is Bugonia. Bugonia, directed by Yorgos Lanthimos, is classic Lanthimos. It is super weird, and as a result, I liked it a lot. We follow Teddy, played by Jesse Plemons, and Dawn, played by Aidan Delbus, as conspiracy guys who are convinced that Earth is being infiltrated. So, because of this, they go after Michelle Fuller, played by Emma Stone, who's a powerful executive that they believe is the alien. Lanthimos plays with this idea of colony collapse as a running metaphor for human civilization, and it fits the film's paranoia perfectly. This is another example of a movie that uses its visual language to really carry the emotional states of our characters. They commit to VistaVision, which is very difficult to work with, and they use it to create uneasy images. They short-side a lot of conversations, they use low angles on wide shots, and they're not afraid to blow out windows, just like in Die My Love, to mirror the disarray in Teddy's home. While the ending is polarizing, I really don't think that it could have ended in any other way, particularly when we look at things through Teddy's eyes. Number 12 is The Perfect Neighbor. The Perfect Neighbor was my favorite documentary of the year, and I'm genuinely grateful that I stumbled into it at Sundance. It takes a fairly familiar subject, guns, stand your ground laws, and this endless American loop of outrage and inertia. But it tells the story primarily through found footage, using body cams and security video and phone recordings. The result is this tremendously unnerving month-by-month escalation that feels both specific but also depressingly familiar. It's not the kind of film that lectures you, it shows you a system, it lets you sit in the repetition and lets the dread accumulate. Ultimately, it ends up saying something significant about inevitability. Not inevitability as fate necessarily, but as policy, and it's one of the most intelligently constructed docs from both a directorial and an editing perspective that I've seen in recent years. Number 11 is Nouvelle Vague. Nouvelle Vague is another Richard Linklater film on this list, and it's one of those movies where, whether you love it or not, I have a hard time believing that any true lover of cinema walks out with nothing. Formally, it's impressive. The black and white photography looks period authentic, the interiors feel right, and the exteriors lean on some VFX to rebuild Paris in ways that Godard would never have had the budget for, which becomes its own sort of irony because the film's moral is essentially that you don't need money or resources to make something great. Yes, it probably hits best if you have some background knowledge on Breathless and why that film mattered, but even if you don't, it's a really captivating celebration of audacity and is a loving portrait of the messy, out-of-control way that Breathless happened, and also the long-lasting impact that this new wave had on the next generation. Number 10 is No Other Choice. While Park Chan-wook may never be able to completely replicate what he did with Old Boy 20 years ago, No Other Choice might just be the closest he's come since. Lee Byung-hun plays Yu Man-soo, a guy with a comfortable life that gets completely yanked out from under him. You can feel this panic turn into something even uglier. Pride and entitlement and a fragile breadwinner identity curdle into violence. What I love is how Park always is able to find comedy inside the horror. Scenes that should play as pure thriller beats start drifting into domestic absurdity, but don't actually take us out of the scene. Visually, it's Park doing what he does best. We have immaculate compositions, we have very clean and clear spatial storytelling using every inch of the frame, and we have these elaborate set pieces with perfect blocking. It might run a touch long, sure, but it's entertaining from start to finish, and Lee's performance does so much without ever feeling like it's begging for sympathy. Number 9 is Train Dreams. Train Dreams is a beautiful, beautiful reflection on life and love and loss. It comes from Clint Bentley, who co-wrote the screenplay with Greg Quadar, and they really do feel like a team that's on a bit of a roll. They wrote Sing Sing together, Quadar was the director there, and now Bentley is at the helm. The film is one of the most gorgeous of the year, and it's no surprise that it keeps showing up in best cinematography conversations. Adolfo Veloso's work is unreal, really. He's a lesser-known director of photography, sure, but he's already clicked with them on a film like Jockey. You can feel the Terrence Malick influence in the way that the film moves and breathes, and that sort of heart-wrenching, surreal quality is made even stronger by Joel Edgerton. He gives such a nuanced performance. He's tough and quiet and traditionally masculine on the surface, but with additional layers hidden underneath. Ultimately, it becomes a story of realizing a little too late what you had without ever forcing emotion on the audience. Number 8 is Marty Supreme. Unsurprisingly, Marty Supreme is an absolutely wild ride. This is Josh Safdie definitely channeling some of the Uncut Gems energy. The pacing can trick you into thinking that we are meandering, and then it just hits you directly in the face. A lot of the conversation here revolves around Tiny Tim, Timothée Chalamet, and he is great and he does a brilliant job marketing the film, but I was arguably even more impressed by the supporting work. We could talk about really a dozen performances, but folks like Tyler the Creator and Odessa Zion and Gwyneth Paltrow stand out. The script is exceptional. I mean, just take a step back and think about what Safdie is able to do with ping pong, and the Safdie-Ronald Bronstein writing pairing really is exceptional at crafting this roller coaster of tension. Number 7 is It Was Just an Accident. It Was Just an Accident from Iranian director Jafar Panahi nails confinement from the opening moments. Characters are locked into tight frames, they're stuck inside cars or squeezed into the central van that we see throughout with very little room to move, and it all underscores that trapped condition that so many people are experiencing under the Iranian regime. Panahi then contrasts those tight spaces with the desert. It's wide and expansive and, in theory, should be free. But instead, it reads like a different kind of prison. There's endless space with no direction. It's a faux freedom. Even when individuals are released from prison, they're not truly free, and Panahi is one of those examples. Tonally, there's levity as a false safety net. We have fleeting pockets of humor that lull you, and then the tragedy ultimately hits harder. The pacing is deliberate. We have long takes that let the tension build in real time, and the ending, without saying anything specific, might just be the best of the year. Number 6 is Hamnet. Hamnet feels like Chloe Zhao is back in her lane again. Yes, it is high profile, sure, but it's much more grounded and deeply human than something like Eternals. Something that surprised me here is how hard the film hit me in the second act. I usually expect the emotional peak to be saved for the final stretch, but I was already breaking in the theater not even halfway through. And a lot of that is, yes, to do with relationships between parents and their children, but also the relationships with these siblings. Jacoby Jupe, the younger brother of Noah Jupe, who's also in the film, does an amazing job as a child actor. He really is remarkable and is possibly the most adorable child I've ever seen, and his relationship with his sister just provides such an emotional impact. Of course, Jessie Buckley and Paul Mescal are both strong as well. We can spend time debating the historical accuracy of the film's depictions, but that's not really the point. It's not necessarily a story about Shakespeare or Hamlet. It's a story about family and loss and how humans deal with tragedy. Number 5 is One Battle After Another. One Battle After Another is Paul Thomas Anderson making something messy and funny and technically very interesting. And for me, it lands much, much better than his last film, Licorice Pizza. The cast, of course, is remarkable, led by Leonardo DiCaprio, who is essentially unable to give a poor performance, and whether you like him or not, he is a hell of an actor. The movie's another wild ride, and the final act car chase is one of the best sequences of the year, full stop. The visuals are pretty fascinating. This is another film like Bugonia that is shot on VistaVision with DP Michael Bauman, a longtime Anderson collaborator. He actually started off as a gaffer and kind of worked his way up on these projects, but they shoot it in a way that is messy on purpose. There are blown out highlights, shifting color temperatures, and other rules that are broken but fit the film's frenetic energy. It's also one of the sneaky funniest films of the year. Yes, Sean Penn is wildly hyperbolized, but it still seems to work. Number 4 is Sorry Baby. Sorry Baby is Ava Victor's directorial debut, and it's one of the most confident first films I've seen in a while. It's structured in 5 chapters across 5 years, and its strength lies in its subtlety. Most first-time directors are worried about not doing enough. They want to do something grand and something bold, but Victor is confident in her writing and her directing and her acting. She does all 3. She's confident enough to tell a story that is never forced. In tandem with DP Mia Chofi Henry, they use doorways as frames within frames. They also push Agnes to the edge in very wide establishing shots, and they're not afraid to hold a shot locked off on a tripod or a slider long enough that you can't look away. The dry humor also keeps cracking through in these little pockets of light in a way that shows us a coping mechanism and never undercuts the reality of this pain or trauma. Needless to say, Ava Victor winning the Waldo Salt Screenwriting Award at Sundance makes perfect sense, and I truly cannot wait to see what she does next. Number 3 is If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You. If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You comes from writer-director Mary Bronstein, coming back after a long time off, and she does something that hit me harder than I expected. The premise is fairly simple. We follow Rose Byrne as Linda, a woman trying to keep her life together while her daughter's medical needs and a literal hole in the ceiling keep widening. Bronstein holds you in discomfort, and the very tight, invasive framing makes every conversation feel like a trap. She's able to do something that I absolutely love, something that really draws me in when done correctly, and that's blending the surreal and the real without ever signaling when it switches lanes. We never quite know what is quote-unquote real, and instead of being something that is distracting, it somehow makes our protagonist's journey feel even more grounded and human. There is definitely a Night Bitch adjacent flavor to it, film from last year, but this one is sharper and much more punishing, and yet another film that I could talk about the supporting performances as well. Conan O'Brien, Christian Slater, A$AP Rocky are all solid, but really this is Rose Byrne's film. She is remarkable. Number 2 is Sinners. Sinners, directed by Ryan Coogler, is the kind of big, audacious studio film that I don't normally rank this high, but even though I saw it early this year, I haven't been able to shake it. Set in 1932 Mississippi, it manages to filter vampire horror through the sound and sweat of the blues and treats music like something sacred. The juke joint sequence alone is enough reason to watch and rewatch this film. It is undoubtedly my favorite scene of the year. During the sequence, we feel the room expand. We see ancestors and future generations bleed together into one moment. Autumn Durald Archipaw's IMAX cinematography is brilliant. This sequence alone took multiple days to film. It's bold, it's tactile, and it feels so alive. And add in Ludwig Göransson's score and everything comes together. It's a film about legacy, about what hurts, about what heals, and what gets carried forward from one generation to the next. The number 1 film of 2025 is Sentimental Value. Sentimental Value, directed by Joachim Trier, was everything I needed it to be and more. Coming off The Worst Person in the World, this feels like Trier at the very top of his game, and for me, Sentimental Value eclipses what he was able to do there, which is remarkable. The script, co-written with Escovote, is truly brilliant. They take fairly simple ideas about family dynamics and slowly reveal how much is going on underneath it all. The cast is a huge part of why it works so well. Renate Reinsve is phenomenal again. Of course, she was also in The Worst Person in the World, and Stellan Skarsgård brings so much gravity without ever having to push for it. Somewhat remarkably, every character feels three-dimensional, even without any one individual completely dominating the runtime. This film is such a showcase in subtlety, in writing, and in direction. It should show us how we are able to do so much with so little when you lean into the truth and don't force drama or tension. It's so heartbreaking. It's about pain and how this pain shows up differently in different people, and how oftentimes we really have no idea what someone is carrying. And that is 2025. Subscribe, like, comment, share your lists of some of your favorite films down below, and stay tuned for more in 2026.